Welcome to the Happiness First radio show, where you learn to consciously create the life you want. Your host, Lorraine Gordon, an expert in law of attraction and present moment awareness, along with her expert guests, give you the tools you need to focus your attention and thoughts to create your best life. And now, here's your host, Lorraine Gordon.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. This is Lorraine Gordon, your online coach, and I know you have lots to do and lots to choose from when it comes to what you're going to listen to, what you're going to fill your mind with, and how you want to take your inspiration. And I'm honored that you've chosen to listen to my show and the guests that I bring you. I want to encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to the show wherever if you're listening on Blog Talk, there's a follow button at the top left. Go ahead and click on that. I have so many listeners, but not a lot of you have actually clicked on that little link because I haven't been discussing it with you. But go ahead, and that way you'll never miss a show if you want to tune in. Now, if you're a regular listener, you know that I am all about happiness first. The rest will follow. So today, I want to spend a little time talking about how we actually contribute to making ourselves feel badly. We make ourselves feel as if something is wrong with us. So, how are we doing that? How are we making ourselves actually feel worse about ourselves? And we're doing it because in some way we feel as if we need fixing. We do it all the time, and it's because of the questions that we're asking ourselves. And by simply noticing, asking a question that can't help but give you a negative answer, and redirecting yourself to asking a better question, you're going to find yourself feeling better and getting an answer that creates a proactive approach instead of getting an answer that strips you of your energy the way feeling badly about yourself does. So this is about getting honest with yourself, not blaming yourself for asking questions that don't serve you, but beginning to observe and then being good to yourself by asking an empowering question, an intelligent question designed to get an answer that you can live with, designed to get an answer that you can use to get the things you want in your life, things like love and health, and even material things, because you know I'm all about the law of attraction and manifestation. I want you to get real honest and ask yourself, how many of these types of questions do you ask yourself? What is wrong with me? Why does this always happen to me? Why did they have all the luck? Why does nothing good ever happen to me? Why am I always coming in second place? When is it my turn? Now, what kind of answers can you possibly get when you ask yourself questions like this? Can you see how those questions will prompt answers that will only make you feel badly? So the idea is, when we ask a no-win type of question, we simply change it to something that is empowering. We ask questions that bring about positive answers and direction and give us energy rather than strip us of our energy. So how to ask better questions? And how do you know what to ask in such a way that it becomes helpful to you? First of all, it's about observation. You need to catch yourself asking that disempowering question. And you want to format your question so that you receive accurate answers from your inner guidance. Now, here's a couple of examples. What can I do to move forward in my goal? What can I change about my current circumstance? What is the next step I need to take to get to my goal? What do I need to understand from this experience? Now, can you see that all of those questions are designed to bring you an answer that you can actually use to move yourself in the direction that you're wanting to go? But they're done in a positive way that gives you energy. We are so accustomed to stripping ourselves of our own energy because we're feeling badly about ourselves. Now, Anthony Robbins, one of the greatest NLP coaches, says, questions provide the key to unlocking our unlimited potential. Quality questions create a quality life. Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. So it's in being honest with yourself and having an open internal dialogue that will place you on the path to success. Now, here are some really good questions. Ask yourself, how do you really want to live? So you want to get clear on your values, what you're wanting in your life. What gets you most excited? When do you feel stuck? And what kind of a person do you have to be to achieve all that you want? And you're going to find that you already have everything you need. As my guest that will be coming on in a moment will tell you, we don't need fixing. Now, here are some questions that Robbins suggests you ask yourself. All right, every night before going to sleep, he suggests you ask yourself the following 3 questions. What have I learned today? What have I enjoyed today? And what have I improved or contributed today? And he says, the power was given to you at the moment you were born. Its source is unlimited. And when you seize it, you'll have everything you need to create a life filled with more passion, excitement, confidence, and joy than you've ever dreamed. And today I am bringing on a wonderful woman, a woman that believes in the fact that you already are all that you need to be. Her name is Candace George Conradi, and she's a best-selling and influential author whose writing speaks to the essential and necessary desire to be valued, heard, and honored in life. Her messages of hope offer strength and courage for the many challenges we all must face, and her readers are impressed with her innate kindness, her generosity, her wisdom, and they find her work timeless. Her eclectic books speak to the heart of all people, regardless of age, and they offer beautiful reminders of humankind's innate power and ability to live a life of value, purpose, and beauty, regardless of their outer circumstances. And without going on and on, I'm going to let Candace tell you a little more about herself. Candace, are you there?
I'm here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm so honored to be on your show, Lorraine. This is very exciting.
Well, good. I'm happy to have you.
I love this topic.
Yeah, how do you feel about asking the right questions? I know that I was reading your bio and you don't talk too much about that, but just offhand, what are your feelings about that?
Well, I think most of the questions that we ask ourselves are pre-programmed through life. You know, they say there's a theory that by the age of 7, you are already kind of imprinted with your family's dynamics and how they speak and how they talk to each other. So most of the conversations we have with ourselves don't even really belong to us. They're not authentic. And I know that when you are able to plug into that personal authenticity, the thing that really moves you, then you can start to hear the kinds of answers you need to hear in order to take that next step toward whatever it is you want in your life. Right. So I think they're critical.
Oh, okay. So isn't that funny that just by reading your little bio, I was able to talk about something that we're both believers in.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty much like-minded here. You know, Candace, I want to ask you, what got you started on the path to inspiring and helping people?
I think it's part of my design. Honestly, I think it's just part of who I am as a person. As far as taking the action toward that, I spent about 20 years working in a church community, working with, especially with teens, with kids and teens. I so I did a lot of volunteer work with them. And the one thing that I've noticed over the years in my own healing and my own progress, my own personal evolution, is that people really, all we have to do is really learn how to be with ourselves, and in a really wonderful way, you know, with all of the warts that we have and all the talents we have. And I felt like as a writer, I've always wanted to write, I felt like as a writer I had a capability to address those things in a way that made people take pause and just stop and think, well, maybe if I just approach this from a different perspective, maybe that's going to make a difference for me. So if I've made a difference in one person's life, I feel like I've accomplished that goal, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I so understand, because my dharma too is to help. I have no choice but to help, and to help people feel good about themselves and to be happy, which is really my message. But I want to ask you, I found this very interesting, the fix factor. Why do we do it? What causes it? And how can that be detrimental to our health? What do you mean by the fix factor?
Well, I think there's two approaches to the fix factor. The first fix factor is when you feel like you need to fix everybody else around you so you'll be happy.
Ah,
and,
right.
And that is probably the most detrimental to our health and well-being, our mental, physical, spiritual, all of it. I don't think that there is probably a worse approach that we can take to our life. You know, it sounds something like, if they would just stop doing this, if they would just be like this, if they would just do this, then my life would be really, really good.
Right.
And that kind of fixing really is, one, it's fruitless, it doesn't work, it's an illusion that we can fix anybody. And then you flip the coin and you go back to, I need to fix myself. And that comes from feeling flawed or feeling shamed. You know, all the things that are written about by thousands of authors about why do we do what we do, right? But sometimes when you're approaching yourself from the fix factor, you're trying to fix what's wrong with you instead of strengthening what's right with you.
Right.
And so all you end up doing is focusing on the mental game that we were talking about in the beginning of this, that you talked about in the beginning of the show. You know, like, what's wrong with me? Why has this always happened to me? Why don't breaks happen for me? And so you're trying to fix it from that perspective. And you can't fix that either. Awareness is everything. And I really believe that the two key ingredients to this is awareness and gratitude.
So when I talk about awareness, I talk about the observer or the witness. How do you describe the awareness that we need to develop, or that it's innate, but how do we click it on?
This is going to sound very, very weird, but you get out of your head.
Okay.
You become present. Mm-hmm. You watch. Like, if you've ever watched a child, I love my grandkids because they're such amazing teachers and reminders to me about where we start, you know. But if you ever watch a child go out and look in the dirt at a roly-poly, they're not trying to fix it. They're not trying to figure it out. They're just amazed at this. They're watching it.
As you talk about it, I remember those little bugs. I haven't seen one of those little bugs or played with one for so many years, but I used to have a lot of fun as a kid, like rolling them around in my fingers and watching them stretch out and then turn into little balls, right?
Oh, yeah. And we're natural observers. But as we grow up, we start getting all these lessons about, you're not doing this, you're not this way, you need to be this way, you need to look this way, you need to have this to be happy. All of a sudden, we lose that incredible natural gift we have to observe. So my first step started with Eckhart Tolle, and The Power of Now, when the second book,
Flowering of.
So I started paying attention. I started watching myself react versus respond, and I started watching the people I loved. We all struggle. you know what, I don't know any human being on the planet that doesn't struggle with something. Mm-hmm. And we're all making this really grand effort to step into whatever that solution is to our struggle. It starts with accepting yourself and observing yourself in your world based on your circumstances. And your world and your circumstances are the best fodder in the world to have happiness. There's nothing, even when it is just a pile of, manure.
You're speaking my language, because before the Power of Now changed not only my life, but the direction of my teaching at the time, because I was a teacher prior to having read that book. But it absolutely shook up my world. And instead of teaching what I was and coaching manifestation, I became a present moment awareness was my focus. And then I found out, oh, by the way, when you're really, really present, the law of attraction actually works better. So it doesn't mean you're not going to get stuff just because you start focusing on being in the present moment. But, I want to ask you how you feel about that. If you're not going to fix yourself, then how do you proactively go about getting what you want?
Well, observation obviously is the first part. Take away, lower the pointing finger. I had a minister years ago say to me, if you're pointing your finger at someone, there's 3 pointing back at you. So just take time to be with yourself in your world. And that's a starter. That's a huge starter. You can do it through journaling or whatever. And you start there, and then you start accepting it. Accept your past. Accept your limitations that you're dealing with right where you are. You stop the struggle. I don't know if you've ever seen those Chinese toys where you put your fingers in the end of them and you pull.
Aha, yes.
For those who've never seen that, it's kind of a woven little toy, and it's in a tube, and you put your finger in each end, and then if you pull on it, you can't get it off. You cannot get this. No matter how hard you pull, it only gets tighter. But when you relax your fingers and you move your fingers together, you can take it off. And most of us, our life experiences are like that tube. We've got our finger in each end, and we're struggling to get away from whatever our life experience is, whether it's our past or our present, or what we think someone's doing to us, or a job we hate. And the harder you struggle with that, your focus becomes the struggle. And through observation, what happens is you get to see that you're struggling. You're your own worst enemy. So you just relax. I'm a big, big, big fan of tapping. I don't know if you're familiar.
Are you? Of course. EFT.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And Ortner's work on the tapping solution is just fabulous. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's free. People have access. They can go in there and do a lot of work for letting go of that struggle,
So in other words, tapping for acceptance and to become, to turn on your natural observation. You can actually tap for those things.
Oh, absolutely. And you can tap for the struggle, too.
Give me an example of what that would be like. How would you tap? In other words, tap for the struggle, or tap to allow the struggle to stop struggling?
Well, the theory behind EFT and EMDR and a lot of the trauma therapy is that it gets logged on a cellular level into our body, and we can't release it. So by acknowledging it, you have a chance to release it. So for instance, if, say for instance, you're unhappy in your marriage. I'll use that. You're unhappy in your marriage, and you think it's your spouse that's causing the problems. So the tapping solution actually, if you go to the website, you can see the pattern you follow, but it starts with using your one hand to tap the side of your palm on your little finger side. And the language sounds something like this. I'm unhappy in my marriage, for instance. So even though I'm feeling really unhappy and disappointed in my marriage, and I don't know, I feel guilty because I'm upset with my partner and I think it's their fault, I deeply and completely and unconditionally love and accept myself. We can't help but be human.
Right.
And when you can tap through something like that, it releases the energy and it brings you into such a state of awareness that you're able to see the path. You can see a way through it, as opposed to trying to avoid it, to blame, to shame, all the things that we do to ourselves or to someone else.
But I think even more than that, it creates an acceptance and makes you a little more aware. But as you were saying, it helps you to release that pattern on a cellular level,
Yes.
which is pretty powerful.
To me, I really think it's the very best, easiest way to free yourselves, to free ourselves of whatever holds us back.
I use tapping with my clients quite often, with my coaching clients. And I found it to be very effective with them, and I actually use it on myself as well. Do you personally use it, Candace?
I use it with my authors that I coach, because I coach authors, and I use it on myself probably on a daily basis.
Wow. And let's say you've got a real situation, a habit that you want to break. How often and how many times do you have to tap about it before you can get it sort of out of your system?
So this is I don't know. Well, I guess it does eventually go away, because I've been using this for 3 years. So there's some things that I'm not charged about. So it depends on how deeply embedded the message is in you. And there's no guarantee as to how long it will take. What I do is I tap it when the emotion comes up.
Oh, but your observer is very keen.
Yeah. But you can tell when you are walking away from yourself. Because what happens to you physically is your gut gets tight, you get a headache, you start getting anxious. Whenever that kind of physical response comes up for you, for any of us, your body is talking to you.
Something that is very interesting, though, and Eckhart talks about it, and I talk about it, and I'm sure you do as well, is that when we are so accustomed to a state like one you just described, that anxiety-ridden state, or the state of the constant chattering, busy mind, we don't notice it any longer. That's our normal way of being.
Yeah, you become numb to it.
Exactly. So when a person can let it go, even for a moment, when they can silence their mind, even for a second, through so many different, there's so many different ways to do it. And of course, I love meditation. I have a wonderful guided meditation that any of my listeners can get for free on my website, LorraineGordon.com, and it'll help bring you into that place of peace and clarity. And that's where you can begin to hear your inner wisdom, utilize your observer, and also notice when you're, as Candace just said, getting away from yourself.
Meditation I've been practicing meditation for 40 years.
Have you really?
I cannot imagine not having it in my life.
Now, let me ask you this. When you married your husband, was he a meditator, or did he think you were kind of weird?
He thought I was totally weird.
My husband thought I was weird, too. Of course, he still does, and it's worked for 34 years, so I guess he likes weird.
Yeah, well, us too. We've been married 33, so there you go.
Isn't that funny? I remember in the early days of our marriage, I would say, well, excuse me, honey, I just have to go in the bedroom and meditate. And his eyes would just roll, and he's just used to it now. He knows that's what I got to do. And in doing that, it keeps me sane. How about you?
Oh, it's writing and meditating are the two things that I use. And I do work with people if they want to start a journal, or they have a memoir, they want to have that as a resource too, because I really find that writing, when you put it into words, you can burn it. You don't need to show it to anybody.
Right.
But writing is an incredibly powerful tool to help with that as well.
I think so too, because it helps your awareness. I mean, it's kind of surprising when you put pen to paper what actually comes out, right?
Oh, I've been shocked at what I've been thinking at times, because we really can't hear our thoughts, and you can't hear them objectively until you reread them. A lot of times what I recommend to what I coach people that I work with journaling on is to write it, set it down, and come back an hour later, a day later, and read it, because you will be able to see. It's a great step in learning to be observant in your life.
And the beautiful thing is that you can also see how really brilliant you are, too. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're going to see something like, oh, my God, I was thinking that. How horrible. It can be like, my gosh, I mean, my hand was working like the hand of God with that prose that I put out.
Oh, I can't tell you as an author. I have gone back and I have got myself in the habit now of making sure my name is on stuff that I put in my computer, because I've gone back and read stuff that I've written and went, oh my gosh, that is amazing. Did I write that?
Me too. It's so funny how, and now isn't that odd though, the way we actually from year to year, and I'm sure it's actually moment to moment, but we are changing. We are becoming, and as Deepak Chopra says, and one of my favorite teachers and actually my mentor, he says, each time you read something, each time you learn something, you ingest it. And the next time you read it, or the next moment you look out through your own eyes, you are seeing it new. You are seeing it differently because you've actually transformed with each bit of information you take in.
You know why that's critical, Lorraine? Because if you're feeding your mind with things that don't support where you want to go, it's really hard to take that trip. And in the same way that doing the inspirational, I feed myself inspirational material continually.
Me too.
But I have a lot of friends that are miserable, that are, they're caught up in reality shows and they follow. It's really what you want in your life. You have to really, really decide what you want and what you're willing to sacrifice or wean yourself away from or wean yourself into, so that you get that kind of permission. You give yourself permission to have that life that you really, really want to have.
So in other words, you create your own world by where you're putting your time and attention, and that ends up becoming your reality. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's it. Perception is everything.
It sure is.
It's everything. It defines everything in our life.
Well, I'm sure you know this very famous quote by Wayne Dyer, and he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
And that is so brilliant. I must quote that, 3 times a week. I just love that. I think it's amazing. And at first, it took me a while to kind of understand. I didn't quite understand it.
Well, I can only tell you from my personal experience. When I started doing this work and I started observing and accepting myself and tapping and working on my, the emotional traps that were inside of me, as I started letting go of all that perception and reshifting that, every relationship in my life became better. My marriage became better, my relationship with my children became better, my relationship with my friends became better. It's been transformational for me, and I if you really out there, you really want to make your life better, there's so many tools, and it's so available today. It's never been available like this.
I want to go into this much more deeply because I think that is key and so valuable to give the audience. And we will do that just as soon as we come back from a word from our sponsors.
The power of the I Am is yours at LOAaffirmations.com, bringing you the very best in audio affirmations programs and introducing our newest title, I Am Happy, Healthy, and Wealthy. All of the LOAaffirmations.com programs are MP3 instant downloads and come with multiple audio and subliminal tracks. Order yours today.
Have you ever imagined a life without worries, fears, and problems? What if I told you that you no longer had to live like that? Changes are possible for you through my teachings and affirmations, CDs, DVDs, and apps. Through our book, Peace in the Present Moment, Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, and I can show you how living in the present moment will change your life. Visit my website, peaceinthepresentmoment.net, and get inspired on my Facebook page of over 73,000 likes.
The law of attraction does work, but if you're unhappy, feeling like a victim or depressed, you're not going to attract what you want. And that's why I've developed my Happiness First, the Rest Will Follow series. And today I'm offering it to you at 50% off. This has worked for me and hundreds of my students and clients. Just go to my website, LorraineGordon.com, LorraineGordon.com. Put the Happiness First series into your shopping cart, and on checkout, put in the code HAPPY NOW. You'll get it at 50% off, and you'll also receive a 30-day money-back guarantee. Okay, back again with Candace George Conradi, best-selling author and a woman that has a beautiful energy field. I can tell you that from just having spoken to her for the last half hour. Candace, you do. You've got a very kind, sweet nature that just I can feel so clearly in just talking to you. So I want to thank you for that, because it makes me feel good, and if it's doing that for me, I'm sure it's doing that for the listeners.
Oh, thank you. That's really lovely that you say that. I appreciate that.
It's true. Now, why don't you tell us about how all of your relationships changed for the better? What was it that you did? What was the key?
I honored them. Bottom line was, as soon as I honored myself, I was able to honor them and what was important to them. I started listening more than talking. I stopped trying to fix them. I stopped having an opinion about the way I thought everything needed to be done.
So you actively, though, changed the way you perceived them, because that was what preceded this, was when I changed the way I look at things, the things I look at change.
Well, no, I didn't actively do it. It just simply happened.
Wow.
I can honestly say that. Grace.
Yeah.
We all, the three things that every human being on the planet needs is to be heard, to be loved, and to be accepted. We confuse love with an emotion. It's a verb. I think it's an action verb. And what you do and how you show up in a relationship has everything to do with how other people feel loved by you.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, so in other words, just feeling love but not behaving in a loving manner is not really loving.
No. We call it love, but it's not love. We think of love as this, this heart-stopping emotional reaction to a person, generally a person. You can love food, or you can love, whatever you love. But when it comes to people, the love so many times comes with a expectation.
Right. And we're always so busy molding people into what we want them to be. I work with a lot of women who are looking to find, their love, their partner, their soulmate. And so often, we, as women, I'm going to put myself in that same category because I'm sure I used to do this, attract a man into our life and then try to make him be what we need instead of just letting go and allowing the right guy to show up.
Yeah, and worse, we try to make ourselves into what the image is that they think they have. One of the things that I think is beautiful about your story about meditation and our husbands thinking we're weirdos.
It's so funny.
but they respect us because we do that. You have to be who you are. You have to be, in order for true love to really exist in your world.
Well, and right. And the divorce rate. I mean, if we show up as who we really are, I'm sure there'll be fewer divorces because we don't have to have that horrible disappointment in 2 years.
Right. Because eventually you have to be who you are, period. So why not just start right now and just go, you know what? these are my strengths. This is what I am powerful at. I have a wonderful little book called Sweet Tweets, 140 Characters of Wisdom, that is a bunch of my tweets. My editor.
Sweet tweets or sweet treats?
Sweet tweets.
Love it.
My editor pulled all my tweets, and I have more now, but we're going to do volume 1, 2, 3, 4, in time. But it's a little journal for people to use and feed themselves. But it's really about being authentic. I've spent the last 4 years of my life really learning to be comfortable in my own skin, and the power of authenticity, when it's real and it comes with compassion and it comes with insight and observation, it moves mountains. That's all I can tell you. It just does.
So unashamedly and unequivocally showing up as who you are.
Yeah.
Accepting yourself.
Yeah.
So it's so important. Now, why don't you talk to us about how you feel about the importance of the present moment?
Oh my gosh.
Big subject.
Big subject. I don't think there's anything more important in the world. I don't think your job's more important. Your kids are more important. I don't think there's anything more important in the whole world as a human being than to be present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean for our listeners that may not be that familiar with being present? Can you tell us what that means exactly?
Sure. I'll use a really fundamental example. If you're in a car and you're driving, if you're not present, you're going to get in an accident.
Right.
So that's on a very fundamental level. If you are in a relationship and someone is showing you what they need, not necessarily telling you what they need, showing you what you need, and you're not present, you can't show up.
You can't hear it. You can't respond properly. Right.
If your body is talking to you and you're having a physical ailment and you don't have an ability to be present with that, you either end up very sick or could possibly die.
Right.
If you have a mission in your life and you feel like you are driven, as you and I feel we're driven to do what we do, me as an author and you as a happiness coach,
right.
You're so much more than that, by the way, Lorraine. But
thank you.
But
thank you.
But when you feel driven, if you're not present with that and you're not honoring that, the opportunity or the door that opens for you, you're going to walk right past it. You won't even see it.
Absolutely.
We can't have the life we want if we're not present. That's how important it is.
Well, yeah, because like you said, you don't see the door that opens the way to exactly what you've been wanting, to your good, to life's blessings, because it's right in front of you, but you're not available. Your eyes aren't open to see it, right?
Right.
Or I always liken it to being blind in a fruit orchard. Food is everywhere, and yet we starve to death. Mm-hmm. Because we just don't see what's right in front of our nose. So how do we, Candace, big question, how do we begin to take those steps to become more present?
Well, choice. You have to make a conscious choice.
Right.
It starts there. It's kind of like I want to lose 15 pounds and I'm making a choice now to start a healthy program where I can get down to a healthy body weight. Okay, that's a choice you make, but unless you take the steps, you're still going to not lose weight. It's just what it is, right? Well, if you don't go to the gym, if you don't choose the right food. But it always has to start with a conscious choice. You have to say, this is where I'm going to start.
And so that also means taking responsibility, though.
Yes.
You have to take responsibility for what is, and then also take responsibility for making it something different.
Yeah, and I love a retake. This is another perception shift for people. When you shift from responsibility being something you have to do, being the ability to respond, and you get to do.
Ah, I like that.
Yeah, because we always look at responsibility as this big heavy weight, right?
I think so. I mean, I personally think of it as being very empowering. If you
Yes.
take responsibility for everything that's shown up in your life, the stuff you don't like, it's empowering because you know you have so much power. You are so strong. You can, once you get conscious, you can begin to create that which you do like. So taking responsibility to me is a very positive thing. But I do think you're right. I think most people think, oh, darn, I guess I have to take responsibility for that.
Well, because we feel helpless because we're trying to fix people. We're trying to be responsible for everybody else. But if you can bring it back to yourself and own it at this really gentle, beautiful place of being able to respond to yourself, then responsibility does become this powerful shaping, transformational tool that is, will change your life forever and ever.
You know, I'm still a little stuck on something, and it has to do with fixing. So if we don't see something as a negative that needs to change, how do we progress and not fix it?
Well, it's, this is schematics, and as an author, I struggle with this all the time, and my coaching students struggle with it all the time, right? It's all about words. Yeah, it's the word thing. But here's the thing: fixing is just a word. It's all about perception, and it's. So, I'm a student of the Tao Te Ching, and it says, I don't think the world can be fixed. I don't think anybody can be fixed. All we can do is really step into who we are, and then the solutions appear. Right. So you make different choices. Certainly, I would not have started on my journey if I felt like I needed to fix me, because I really felt like I needed to fix me.
Right.
But what it came down to, bottom line, was it came down to me accepting myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then all my gifts bubbled up, then who I was bubbled up, all the good, and it took me a long time. I mean, I was 50 before I wrote my first book.
I understand that. I do. I relate to that as well. The truth isn't, and we're so much on the same page. I talk about acceptance being the very thing that gives you the energy you need to move forward with your life. And that means accepting ourselves, as you said, warts and all. And I just wrote a blog and used that exact sentence, warts and all. So I thought that was kind of funny. When we stop looking in the mirror and finding fault, when we stop thinking of our attributes and blaming ourselves, we have boundless energy. But when we're busy in non-acceptance and beating ourselves up, it strips us of what we need to happily survive.
This is the bottom line, Lorraine. I say this, I use that line way too much, so I apologize to the listeners, but there's many bottom lines, obviously. But the truth is if you're unhappy and your life isn't working, you have absolute options in your life. And if that is happening to you, if you're experiencing that and you're deeply unhappy, then something needs to change for you. And you have the power to do that.
Why don't you give us some examples of deeply unhappy situations and the type of way a person would to change that?
Oh my gosh, there's so many choices to make here. Let me give me a minute for something inspirational to come up that's going to be relevant.
Okay.
You don't like how you look.
Okay, good. I think as women, most of us can relate to that. You don't like how you look. Okay.
So you're unhappy with how you look.
Right.
So you go to the mirror and you say, first off, I'm unhappy with how I look. Tap it out. And even though I'm not happy with how I look, I completely and unconditionally love and accept myself. And look at your face in the mirror. One of the most profound stories I ever heard was of a woman who had lived a very high-profile life, and it was not a star or anything, but she'd been very active in her life, successful, and she came down with cancer. And she'd been one of these people who had really criticized and been hard on herself. And when her body was, from the chemo, she'd lost weight. Her muscle mass was, not there anymore. And she said, I got out of the shower and I was standing and looking in the mirror, and I broke down in tears and started thanking my body for carrying me through my life.
Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it?
It is so beautiful. So you start with really acknowledging that you're unhappy. Give yourself the grace to love yourself anyway.
Uh-huh.
And let that lead you to the solution that maybe you need a haircut, maybe you need a hair color, maybe you need to lose weight, whatever it is that you're or maybe it's a past, maybe it's your past. And if it is your past, find somebody to help you uproot that. Find an EMDR counselor who's going to make that difference for you. Read books. My books are inspirational. They're all available on Amazon.
And I'll have information about your books on the link wherever someone is listening. There will be your website and your books, etc., right there.
Yeah, and I'd love to invite you into my blog to watch. I changed my blog from Women with a Voice to 60 over 30, the years in between.
Wow.
And I would love anybody to offer their perspective if they read it, maybe be inspired by it, share it. That would be a nice thing.
And I'll have links to that right here on the listening page. So that's interesting, 60 over 30. What exactly does that mean?
Well, I started thinking about it because I do a lot of reflective writing, and I thought I realized that everything that I write about has to do with the years that I lived between 60 and 30, or between 30 and 60. And so it's kind of an overview of my life looking back.
So that's where the biggest changes took place between 30 and 60? Or the most awareness, or was that the most unhappiness?
A little of all of that. A little of all of that. I had a lot of healing to do. I had a lot of writing to do. I had kids to raise, I had a family, and there were so many pieces to it, but it's kind of what we talked about. Was it Wayne Dyer the quote or evolution?
When you change the way you look at things?
Well, you were talking earlier about evolution.
that was I think Deepak Chopra.
Oh,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. We don't realize that it's happening in every moment, which is why it's so important to be present.
It's true. It's true because it is amazing what we miss, and how we numb ourselves to the present. We numb ourselves to not the present moment, to our thoughts about the present moment.
Yeah, it's our opinion. If we could all give up our opinion, really.
Yeah.
Let's have a give up your opinion week and see how people do. And you're going to find out how many opinions you have about everything from the person in front of you at the grocery store to your best friend to your kids to the television shows, you name it. I mean, we're a highly opinionated people, and it's not a bad thing, but if you start being aware of what your opinion is, most of us would be shocked out of our shoes.
Well, it certainly keeps us very busy.
I know.
I think that is interesting. If we can just notice what we're thinking about everything as you walk through the market alone. And I'm not talking about reading the ingredients so that you make an intelligent choice. I'm talking more about our judgment, the way we're judging everyone around us. And how much more room would we have for a creative, proactive thought if we weren't spending so much time doing that?
Oh, it's an incredible waste of our creative gift as a human being. We are creative, and women are more creative than we nurture babies and carry them and give birth to them. Our creativity has been so stunted for so long. It's time for us to step up and stop wasting our time on things that don't matter.
And why do you think our creativity has been so stunted?
Because we drank the Kool-Aid. minimized being a mom and staying at home, felt like we needed to go out and have a career, or didn't go out and have a career because we felt like we couldn't do anything else but be a housekeeper and a cook. It's all about how we defined our role in society. Our voice didn't matter. If you have an opinion about something, nobody listens. It's about being able, I write a lot about the whole thing about voice of women. It's how we present and what we say to people and how we show up with ourselves, and the words we use and how we feel about our value. That's a show that, yeah.
That's very interesting. So we are very busy devaluing ourselves. It's not society doing it to us. It's women. We are doing it to ourselves.
Well, I think it's a combination. I think it's one of those spiral things. We do it and society affirms it, and then we do it and society affirms it. I think that's true for all of us who feel minimized,
Mm-hmm. Again, we drank the Kool-Aid, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And so what do you think we're capable of achieving if we were to allow our creative juices to bubble up?
I think the world would change tomorrow. I think if everybody stopped today and put their voice, I think the right politicians would get voted into office. I think that the banks would be more responsible. I think our children would grow up knowing what they wanted and feel comfortable in pursuing their dreams. As we had a talk before the show about our boys, growing up and doing that, moving to New York, the little devils.
Yeah. How dare he?
I know. But the world would change. The Dalai Lama said that the world was going to change because of the Western woman. And it's because we have the freedom to have our voice.
Right. And so, in your opinion, are we kind of wasting it? We are not oppressed the way the Eastern women are so desperately oppressed. Are we wasting our voice as women?
I think so. I think we spend a lot of time worrying about if we, what we look like, what we should, kinds of clothes we should wear, what kind of gossip is going on. Social media has taken over our lives. Mm-hmm. There was a great video on Facebook of this little boy saying 10 things to do if you're a mom or something. One of them was put your phone down,
Listen to me. Right.
Listen to me.
And, you talked about the present moment. And I've spoken years ago. I taught present moment awareness for about 10 years to all of my coaching clients, and I used to travel and teach it. And I would say this: how can you look back and remember times when your child was pulling at your hem, imploring you with their eyes? They were trying so hard to say something to you, but you weren't able to hear it. You were gone. You were physically there, but you were gone. Being in the present moment is everything, as you said.
I don't care to be younger. I'm really happy, Lorraine, being who I am and having lived the years that I've lived. The only redo that I would ever wish for would be to be more present with my kids.
Yeah, me too.
But I get to do it with my grandkids.
Right. You get a do-over with the grandkids.
You do.
We are just about at the end of the show, and I want to ask you if there's anything that you would like to leave the audience with.
Trust who you are. You were born into life. You have a purpose. I write a lot about purpose. I have a children's book. It's really an adult fable about purpose called The Gentle Pine's Purpose. Trust it. You are here for a reason. You're here to, give your piece to this thing called life, and the puzzle will never be complete without you. So trust that you're really a valuable piece, that you fill in this really important gap in life understanding. And it doesn't matter what you want to do. If your heart and your soul and your body is telling you this is what I want to do, then you should be doing that.
Right. So trust yourself, be true to yourself is one of Candace's many messages to us. And I want to thank you so much for being with me. And I want to tell everyone that Candace has a wonderful free gift for you. It's a year-long journal of healing and an interactive children's downloadable ebook, A Guide to Being You. And I will have, again, all that information available right here on your listening page. You can also go to CandaceConradi.com. That's CandaceConradi.com to find out a little more about Candace and find out what she's doing and buy her books. Candace, I want to thank you so much for being with me, and I hope that we're going to get together again and talk to women specifically about changing the world. I think that could be a really cool show.
Oh, I would love that.
And for the rest of you listening, once again, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope that in some way the information that you've gotten on this show will change your life and help you to be a happier person. Be sure and follow the show on Blog Talk or iTunes. Write a comment. People really do respond to what you have to say. You're actually going to help someone to get the information they need by your comments. And feel free to write me. That's Lorraine, Lorane, at LorraineGordon.com. I answer all of your letters. I am here for you. I want to bring you more of what you want to learn about. And for daily inspiration to feel good all day long, go to Facebook, Your Happiness Way, and follow me on Twitter. It's at Lorraine Gordon. And once again, feel free to communicate with me that way. I will respond. I read it avidly, and I am here for you. And for those of you that are interested in finding out a little bit more about what coaching is like, you know, maybe you're feeling a little nervous about it or you don't know if it's for you, I am offering a free 25-minute consultation, and we can just spend a few minutes finding out what's going on with you and how I can help you. That is my mission, to help you. Once again, thanks so much for listening. This is Lorraine Gordon. I'm your online coach, and I'll be back again with you same time next week. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Happiness First, the Rest Will Follow, with Lorraine Gordon. She'll be back next week with another great show. And to learn more about Happiness First, visit LorraineGordon.com. That's LorraineGordon.com. Be sure to subscribe and receive some fantastic free gifts. Lorraine wants to bring you more of what you want, so please make a comment on the show page here. Or you can email her at Lorraine@LorraineGordon.com. And thank you for listening.